Hello, you're watching RPTV News, and my name is Dimitri Martinovich. On today's episode of RPTV, we will be speaking with Brianne Zelinsky, who is the Community Engagement Coordinator at the Salvation Army's Regent Park Food Bank. The Regent Park Food Bank has operated for more than 20 years. And while it has provided what amounts to a lifeline in essential services for people who are receiving social assistance, people who may be disabled, and the working poor, its services have never been more in demand than at the present moment. Let's join Brianne now as she tells us how the food bank is coping during the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome, Brianne, to RPTV, and I have a few questions for you about the Salvation Army Food Bank. Can you tell me how long the food bank has operated in this community?
The Salvation Army has a long-standing history in Toronto's downtown, specifically in Regent Park. We've been there for about 20 years, and our food bank there has operated for most of that time in some capacity.
And just briefly, what are your operating hours? Have they changed since COVID-19 came into effect?
Prior to COVID-19 and government health orders, we were open Monday to Friday, 9 to 3, and our drop-in cafe was available all day for anyone who wanted to come in and get food or make a food bank appointment. Now we've had to limit our hours to just Mondays, and our food bank is only open Monday from 8 in the morning until 12 at noon.
Wow.
That's by appointment. However, we do also have a drop-in schedule for Thursdays. So from Thursdays at noon until about 2 o'clock, we have our second harvest delivery, which is just fresh fruits, vegetables, and produce, and we distribute those Thursday afternoons.
Can you just tell us where the food bank is located?
Yeah, we are at 77 River Street in Regent Park, Mondays and Thursdays currently. Hopefully soon, once things get back running and we flatten this curve, Monday to Friday.
And how has COVID-19 affected the number of staff that you have, the volunteers that are involved with your organization?
So we were prioritizing the safety of our volunteers, staff, and community. And so right now, we've had to really limit the number of volunteers that are helping out. We've got our staff down to a skeleton staff. So I'm even working from home currently. But we've got a few staff and volunteers there. And we're not able to have anyone inside. So whenever there's food distribution, we do it outside. We have a parking lot next to our facility, and so we usually do distribution there. And we've just asked that the community respect the social distancing protocols that we have in place. So waiting 6 feet apart. Our staff are all wearing PPE and doing their part to keep everyone safe. So we're limiting contact with food as much as possible.
So I haven't been to the food bank there for a while. So when you say people are wearing PPE, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, our staff and volunteers are all wearing a gown with face masks and gloves. And we've had to structure it differently. So usually when you hand someone a hamper or a bag of food, you just hand it with your hands. We've now, every time we distribute the food, for the person who's next in line, they have to wait separated from our staff. We have a gate there, and we put the food on a trolley. We push the trolley outside the gate. People are able to pick up the food. We bring the trolley in, and then it's disinfected immediately.
So can I ask how long all of that took to work its way through? How long did it take you to install these particular practices?
First, when this all happened, I think similar to a lot of people, we were just trying to figure out, okay, what's standard here? What are other people doing in the restaurant business or in the food industry? And what's safe for people and for our staff? So at first, it really did evolve. I mean, it started with, we're going to limit the number of people who can come in at one time. And we're going to separate tables 6 feet apart and have one hamper on each table. People can come in, grab their food, and then leave. And it's always been by appointment, so that didn't change. But what we found was that even with people in the same room, there's a lot of crossover. So we had to eliminate it completely to be, we can't have people inside our buildings. And that is standard for the Salvation Army. At every location, we're not allowed to have our buildings open, but we are allowed to still distribute food because we are an essential service.
And what about the people that you're serving? Have you noticed any significant change in the demographic of the people who are coming to access your food bank?
We are, for the most part, still seeing the same ages and demographics in the population that we serve. What has been pretty overwhelming is the significant increase in the number of people we serve. So we went from serving anywhere between 25 and 50 families per week to now we're at the higher end of 75 to 100 families per week. And those families are different every single week. So the number of people and the volume of community members has increased dramatically. Yeah. And I mean, that's when crisis strikes, everyone's hit hard, but the vulnerable are hit harder. And so we have people who have lost their jobs, but they were already kind of on that line of not being able to afford groceries or not being able to make it to the end of the month. So then to lose your job or to be so impacted by this economy and, you know, even access to grocery stores right now or surges in prices of certain items, we're now getting people coming to us who haven't come to us before because they didn't need to. So we've seen that change as well.
And can I ask you, what kind of food services do you provide? Are there differences between the things that you do, or can you talk about that?
So again, normally we would have meal programs running at the same time as our food bank. So we would have lunches and dinners that we would do during the week. We aren't able to run those currently. However, we are still running our food bank. And when I say food bank, those are hampers that have been constructed mostly for families, but also for individuals in the community. And those include non-perishables and food staples that most families would need. So, for example, pasta sauce, canned vegetables, bread, granola bars, snacks for kids like pudding, canned fruit, that kind of thing. Cereal, rice, potatoes, those staples. And we package those for every Monday when community members come to receive the hampers. That can last for a family of 4 from 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the size of the family and the age of the kids and their needs. But then on Thursdays, we have our fresh produce that's provided by Second Harvest, and that's drop-in. You don't have to have an appointment for that. And usually that includes fresh vegetables, so peppers, cucumber, carrots, fruits, yogurt, dairy products, that kind of thing.
And where does the funding come from for your organization and the food as well?
The funding for our program comes through the Salvation Army directly. The Salvation Army's fundraising efforts throughout the year in the community is gathered and then distributed across the province according to need. So our center, being downtown Toronto and being in the neighborhood with such a high volume of people that we serve, we would get funding from the Salvation Army's provincial fund. You might be familiar with our Christmas Kettle campaign. It's usually in December, during the month of December, we put out donation bubbles, and you see these at the Eaton Center, grocery stores, liquor stores, and all of the bubbles that are in the downtown east neighborhoods are actually, the funds that are collected actually directly support our food bank and family services. And the food that would usually fill our food bank is provided from a variety of donors around the GTA, and they're collected by our central warehouse in Scarborough. So this warehouse then distributes the food to Salvation Army food banks throughout the Greater Toronto Area.
How has COVID-19 affected the operation and the functioning of your food bank?
Our food bank it works in tandem with our drop-in cafe. A lot of people who access our food bank are also going to our meal programs, getting clothing vouchers. And so having to shut down one part of the body while the other still remains has been a bit of a challenge, because you don't have the meal programs, the drop-in cafe supplementing the groceries that we're also providing. And so we are seeing that increase. But also, I think they're beyond just distributing food, we offer hope. And you know, when you're an organization that really tries to tackle loneliness and mental health and addictions and all of these other areas of our social services, it is hard when that social piece shuts down, because we've always been fighting against people in isolation and trying to build community. And while we understand that social distancing is totally necessary for the health of the community, that's been a challenge. Despite that, we continue to run the food bank, and we will do so as long as we are able. That won't close down. We know that there's such a need for that, and that will stay in place.
When you say the cafe, what does that look like when people come to attend or use the services at the cafe? How does that look?
It really just is that. It's, if you were to walk into a coffee shop, you're able to sit down, grab a cup of coffee. At ours, you don't have to pay for it, so that's great. But we also offer light lunches several days during the week. And at any time, you can grab coffee, tea, water. There's usually fresh pastries or bread. So we have people that they come every day. We have people that just drop in once in a while, and you just walk through the doors. Our cafe is on the first floor, and so they grab a cup of coffee, sit down, play board games, and that's what a typical day looks like there.
And what about your supply of food? Have you noticed a difference in the quantity and the range of food that you would normally have had available?
In a short answer would be yes. With the increase in demand, of course, our supplies are limited, but so they have changed during this time, but our team at the warehouse really has remained diligent about sourcing food, about getting government funding, which we've received to purchase food. We are actually receiving, the Salvation Army across Ontario and our location specifically, we're going to be looking into gift cards. We've received gift cards from donors and funding to be able to purchase gift cards to give to community members so that they can use them toward groceries.
Brianne, I've heard that there's a rumor that the Salvation Army is going to sell the building and move to another location. Is that true? And what is the plan for the future? And will you continue to provide services to the community?
So this is true. The building has been sold for some time now, and a new condo is going to be built on our current site. That said, it's been a project that's been in the works for about 10 years. And so it's finally just starting to come around to the next stage, and that stage is the demolition and construction. Fortunately, once the new building is complete, we do get some space there. And so we're going to be returning to 77 River, our current address, and we've negotiated ownership for some of the space in the building. So with that, all of that said, we will be returning, and we will be providing the current services that we're offering, as well as services that we're hoping to introduce in the near future. With the interim, while we're out of the building, our team has been talking with landlords at getting space, and we're intentional about finding space that is proximal to where we are now. So we're looking in the Regent Park and Moss Park neighborhoods. So they say it's 4 years. We know that's not always true. So for about the next 4 to 6 years, we'll be somewhere else in the area, that's still to be determined, offering food bank and many of the same services that we offer now.
So with these changes, what, if any, kinds of projections do you have in terms of the food bank services that you're currently providing and what they might look like in the future?
It's actually really hard to tell. Many people in our community are on a fixed income, and they may rely on food banks to just supplement the food that they need throughout the month, or they might rely on us totally for that. So in addition to providing food as we do, we also want to look at ways to integrate food security into our community, so that families if they don't have that food, they're able to feel that they're not constantly living on the edge. We run a program called Pathway of Hope, and Pathway of Hope identifies families in the community who are open to working with a caseworker one-on-one to help achieve short-term and long-term goals. So these are usually families that access our food bank because they may not have the resources to get to the end of the month. And we look at what is the root cause of that. Is it because you still need an education in order to get a job, or maybe you're new to Canada and you don't have those connections, or you need a job internship, something like that. And so we work with them one-on-one toward achieving those goals, while still providing the basic need, meeting their basic needs, and then working towards how do you get out of this cycle? And it's all about breaking the cycle of poverty. So we do both, and we'll continue to do so.
Can you share some stories of how the food bank has impacted the lives of individuals that you've encountered, in your day-to-day work?
Yeah. So without naming them, I can think of a handful of families that I've developed relationships with who access our food bank because we also run youth programs. So we have kids that come into our space and they learn about life skills, leadership development, and it's an after-school program we call Squads, and we run it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And at one point I was leading Squads and organizing it for the kids in the community. And so through having the kids in the program, you meet the parents, you talk with them, you develop these relationships, and you find out, it's not that people in the community are always hungry. They have places to go and eat, but they don't have food in their homes. And so when you're dropping the kids off at night after this after school program, and you're talking to the parents, you realize, you actually don't have a cupboard with any snacks in it, or you don't have a fridge with fresh fruit in it. And so we find that for families specifically, the food bank is supplementing those needs. Families aren't necessarily hungry, but they don't have food in the home. And so we've been intentional about also looking at how do we address that need specifically. But then there's, on the other side of things, we've got individuals who come to us and completely rely on us for food. And they come to us for their weekly groceries because they are unable to afford it in Toronto and downtown right now. And so we've worked with everyone on that spectrum, and you really do see how the need varies. We've got demographics who are actually homeless and they live on the street. And so you're packing a hamper for someone who doesn't have a home or doesn't have a microwave or stove, that can look different than the family who does have the home. They just have empty cupboards.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about your work, your experience, about what's happening at the food bank now during COVID-19?
Like I said before, it's not just about giving someone a bag of food, it's about giving someone hope. And a huge part of what we do is we are a social lifeline. So people come to our space because they're lonely, They come to our space because they don't have connections in the neighborhood, and we might just be, it might start as just providing a bag of food, but we really do try and get to the root cause of what that is and how we can meet their social needs as well, because that's a lifeline too. And so we recognize that for many of the people who come to us, they're in a place of absolute crisis. And that can be really hard to see in our city. It can be hard to see in Regent Park, especially now. It's dramatically changed. And so where the need may not be on the surface and it might not be so obvious, there's a lot of people that live on that line of not making it to the end of the month. And we try to supplement that, whether it's food, or we also provide hygiene products. For families with young children, we provide diapers and formula and baby food. So it stretches beyond just a bag of food. And I guess the encouragement has been seeing not just our staff and volunteers, but so many community partners and nonprofits stepping up right now. And it's really in collaboration with everyone in the community that we're able to do this.
Thank you, Brianne. It's truly staggering to consider how much the coronavirus pandemic has changed all of our lives. Every facet of our social interactions has changed. What was normal once is now fraught with danger. The simple act of giving now requires stringent safety protocols: face masks, face shields, gloves, and other forms of protective clothing. Just as shocking as these intrusions are, what's even more remarkable is the willingness of people everywhere to remain committed to helping others in spite of the danger to themselves. My name is Dimitri Martinovic, and you're watching RPTV. Join us again when we continue to bring you stories and issues of critical importance to our communities.
Like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more information, follow us on all our social media platforms. And don't forget to visit our website, as well as comment down below what you thought about this video.